guys, and today we're going to be learning how to build a fire when you're in wet locations, such as today. It was raining all morning. The sun just came out, but in this scenario, I've been hiking for a long time. I went out for just what I thought would be a day hike, and ended up getting lost, and I'm out here now that realizing that I'm going to have to spend the night, and I better get a fire going. Another reason I want to get a fire going is because I'm wet. I've been hiking in the rain. It's been wet and rainy, so the potential of hypothermia is definitely coming in. So I'm going to need to find a way to get materials that are dry so I can actually get a fire going. And the ground is very wet right now, so in this scenario I'm basically going to show you how to get a fire started in wet and rainy locations. Like I said, the sun just came out, so everything's saturated in water. So first thing I'd like to talk about are the fundamentals to fire. Basically three things. One is heat, the other is oxygen, and then the other one is fuel. You take one of those things away and you kill the fire. Basically the bottom line principles to it. So you need to think about dry. That's all to do with heat. You put water on it, you cool it, you smother it, you take away the oxygen factor and also the heat, and that's why water will often put out a fire. There's reasons that gas fires and whatnot don't go out with water as well, and that's because they've got everything they need within that gas. They've got their oxygen, their fuel, and the heat, which is the flame. So it's enough to keep it going. So anyways, this is wood fire. It's classified as, I think it's C if I remember right. No, C is electricity. This is A. A is all combustible materials. So yeah, anyways, that's irrelevant. We're out here in the woods. We're in a survival scenario. So I'll start off with collecting dry firewood. Now where are we going to get it? Here's one good place to start. See this overhanging tree? And you'll see actually a dry spot. And in this case, there's actually been something that was sitting here and is excreted, and it's gotten moldy. So probably a mouse or a bird or something like that. But regardless of that, I just thought that was sort of interesting. You've got lots of dry tinder stuff right here underneath this overhang. You also have this dry tree bark to work with. This is western red cedar. It actually is pretty decent fire starter. You'll want to take off maybe some of the wet layer. This is just a bit wet from water running down, but you get down to here and this is relatively dry that you can actually get a decent fire starter if you just rub it like so, and you can get this this papery material. That stuff's great for starting fires. So that's one spot where you can find dry fire starter. Once again, another leaning tree, and you'll find more dry stuff around the base of it and right around where the notches are. So when you're hiking, a good idea is when you come across this stuff, just grab it and stuff it in your pocket. Just sort of gather tufts of this stuff and pieces, because you're not really sure when you're going to come across it again. In my area, I mean, it's everywhere. So I'm not going to get that far just yet. I'm just showing you guys where to find these things, and then I'm actually going to make the fire with these materials that we're going to find. Here's another spot you can always look for dry wood. There's actually a dry section on this old stump. The reason you want to use old stumps especially is that the wood's rotten and dead, and it is basically already fire ready, and you can cut strips off it, shave off the wet section, get down to that dry layer, and you can use that as a good fire starter. This knife, the reason it's not working so well is the wood out here gets really hard. So, but you can take off basically shavings of it, which works well. So Anyways, that's another way. I'm going to show you one that works very well, this next method of finding dry wood. So when you come deep into the cedar groves and not alder groves, but the basically the evergreens, is a pretty decent spot to find dry wood. If you look, now these are soaked right now, and you need to go into a little bit deeper area. But you can see these twigs that are sitting here that are dead. There's no green in these twigs. They're basically dead, and they make great kingling. You can take the little pieces off; they'll snap when you just listen. You hear that snap? That means it's dead, and it makes great fire starter. But the trick to it is you need to find dry stuff, and it rained really heavy, so to find them it's going to be a little tricky, but it's often a very good spot to look for kingling and fire starters. So what you use are what they call the duff layer. It's the like basically the forest litter, which is everything you find on the ground to stuff about that big. Then anything bigger is kingling, and then you want to use your after the kingling, your starter, which is the mid-sized pieces, and then you use your logs. Another great spot to find duff is underneath fallen logs. I know the light conditions are bad, but I can pull out of here a lot of dry tinder. This stuff is bone dry, and that'll be great fire starter. So take basically a handful of that. So yeah, I've showed you pretty much some good places to find dry wood. Once you got your fire started, you can use damper wood, and it will actually keep going. The trick is though you don't want too wet wood, or you'll end up just smothering out your fire. So it's that healthy medium, but you can dry out the wet wood once you get your fire started. So it's not like wet wood is an absolute waste. So we're going to find a good spot to start this fire. We want to be in a spot that's protected from the wind, so it's not blowing our fire out or blowing our fire out of control. And also, the more wind you have on your fire, the more it consumes of fuel, and you're going to have to feed it more. So if you're wanting to spend the night, and once it gets dark, it gets pretty hard to get firewood. So you want to have a good pile of it before night falls. But also, you'll want to keep feeding that fire. So you'll need to think about that and how much consumption your fire is going to be using. So I found a good pit right here. I think I'm going to do it right here. It's open. You need to think, even though it's wet and rainy, could dry out. You want yourself good tree coverage, but open as well. So you're, especially in summertime, this doesn't really apply in this wet weather right now, but this is something to keep in mind anyway. Your tree overhang. You build a fire right underneath branches, or let's say we built the fire over in that tree grove because it's dry and warm. Well, you're more likely to have a forest fire. Even though the ground's wet, you dig a foot down and you basically got bone dry roots and dirt, and you can cause yourself a wicking fire too, which chases underground, and it can burn for a long time. Sometimes it'll burn even during winter, and then it'll pop up in the summertime somewhere and cause a forest fire. So you need to keep all those things in mind. Normally I dig out that area and I put the dirt back in and get rid of all the plant material, such as roots and stuff like that. And what that does is gives me a good, basically I go 8 inches of fire barrier, which is just pure dirt. But I mean, when you're in extreme fires, forest fire, you don't even want to be in this area. You want to be somewhere more open. But for my scenario right here, this is going to be perfect because it's open. We got the light for the camera, and also it's a good spot for just a demo, and we're just doing a small little fire, just get one started. So we don't need to worry about the burning factor of it burning down, stuff like that. This fire will be out before any of that happens. So we'll go get some fire material. Oh, two other things you might want to think about is a dry place to store your firewood, whether it be underneath a tree or you build a shelter for your firewood, or you lay it on a flat tarp or a garbage bag or any other kind of things you may have. In my scenario, I would probably use a piece of tree bark or a flat rock to lay my fire starter on. So there you go. I just pulled some rocks up out of the ground just within 13 feet of this place. Size isn't a big deal of the rocks. It's you can gather smaller ones and pile them up like that as to using just big ones. I'm just slightly distracted. I heard a deer walk by just over there. It was really close. So anyways, so yeah, now we need to get some firewood and we need to set up a dry place to put our firewood. I think I'm just going to set it up on this stump here. It'll keep it up and off the ground so it's not sucking water from the ground, and because this ground is just soaked. Also, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to whittle down some wet logs to the dry section just as a demonstration to show you another way of getting dry wood. But I'll do that when we're actually getting our fire started. So yeah, these a lot of mushrooms up right now. It's weird because it's February, sort of the beginning of February even, and it's just been so mild that getting a lot of these. If I knew which ones were edible and which ones weren't and all that, one could survive out here just off of them, I'm sure. But well, I wouldn't say survive just off of them, but you know what I mean. It give you more than nothing. These guys right here is good food. This is the perfect time to pick them as well, just as they're little babies. These are stinging nettles. It's silic acid that burns you, by the way. So if you get stung by them, use a base. Soap is good, or baking soda, stuff like that. Alright, anyways, we're off to collect our firewood. Okay, so just pick you guys up and show you a little tour. So what I've done here is I've laid a piece of bark in the bottom, and the reason for that is that we're not actually laying on the mud. We're going to put our fire on that, and it'll just give us a little bit of a barrier between the ground, and you get more oxygen, you know, in your fire this way as well, not just keeping it somewhat dry. If you're going to dig a pit, there's something you need to keep in mind. I forgot to mention while we were doing this. This is just a pit I found, but quite often at this time of year, it's wet, rainy winter. If you dig down too far, you hit water, and that just defeats your whole purpose. So it's just one thing to keep in mind if you're trying to get a fire going. So you want higher ground. Anyways, we got a few materials here. I've got a little bit of fire starter I found that's dry. I'm going to show you how to prepare that. And we got some mildly wet logs, but I've cut into them and they're dry on the inside, and they're old deadfall, so they should work well too. I found these things underneath logs. Just fallen logs that were basically rotten, and yeah, so we're gonna get started. So a couple things you're gonna want to do first things when you land here. I'm gonna draw you guys back a bit so you can actually see everything. Okay, I may have to always take a lighter with you, whether you smoke or not. It doesn't matter. It's not about smoking. It's about survival. Just take a lighter with you, or at least matches at least. But I think lighter's better. You want a knife? This is just my hunting knife at the moment. It's all you need, just the bare minimals. Swiss Army will do. You want to go in all your pockets now when you realize you're lost, and go through everything. Take an inventory of what you got, because you'll probably have fire starter. I mean, I got just wrappings here that would work. I'm not going to use them in my scenario. I'm going to pretend I don't have those. But I'm going to use what's in my wallet possibly. Go in there. I don't have any money, but sometimes receipts, notes, just pieces of paper I happen to have in here will work fine. Worst case scenario, your credit card will burn. So, it's plastic. Fine. Anyways, we're not that extreme. So, get out our dry material that we're going to start with. What I've got here is just basically some duff. I've got very dry tinder, more or less. And we're going to use some of that. I'm going to reach in my pockets. I'm going to pull out what's called pocket lint. It's the inside fluffy stuff of your jacket or shirt. Quite often you'll find pieces, quite good little chunks of it. This here is more or less pocket lint, and a lot of sawdust in mine, but you can find quite often clothing fibers and that kind of lint. It's great for a fire starter. Just going through all my pockets and the deep crevice corners of them to see if there's any fluffiness I can pull out just to add to my fire starter. Now, this stuff splinters up real nice. I'm going to just make sort of a teepee. I don't know if you can see. I'll zoom in and show you what I'm doing. You don't want to use anything that's wet at the moment. Just set it off to the side of your fire, wet stuff. As your fire gets warmer and warmer, it will dry this stuff out and you can use it. So, there. I'm going to take these pieces now, drop them in. Now this takes patience. To get a fire started, you can't be impatient. If you're being impatient, you're going to botch it. If you're rushed, you're not going to get your results. It's kind of hard to get a teepee going sometimes. What you can always do is set up a bigger chunk and lay your pieces up to it, what I call housing. And that often works as well. These are very basic. There's no reason to get extravagant here. This is just trying to keep warm. So, because of my dire situation of dryness that I want, I am going to cheat by using the old receipt. The trick to this is you'll want to tighten up the ball so it burns longer. So I like to roll them and twist them. And I'm going to place that underneath as our wick. So, decent start. And a lot of this stuff is kind of damp, but once the flame gets on it, it will sort of take away the dampness. It will hopefully burn. Yeah. Anyway, I've got to go get more materials, so I'll turn off the camera for a second. Now, seeing that this is just a demonstration, I'm not going to go too extravagant and going to get a whole bunch of wood and waste my time here. The trick to the paper is you don't add that till the very end. If you add it before and you go away and get firewood and you come back and it's rained, your paper's wet and you've taken away your whole purpose. So anyway, what we're going to do is this is just the starting method of how to get it started. And at this point, once you get that lit, you get the flames going, you're going to add bigger pieces. I didn't get them because I didn't have the time to really get everything I wanted. Everything is really, really wet here. And in my location of 100 feet, sort of just what I'm working with, I can't seem to find decent dry places. I'd have to go for a lot longer walks and then to come back here and set it up. So I'm just going to work with this. I could use a flint strike, but it's a lot more work, and for my results I happen to have a lighter on me, so we're just going to use that. And we're going to pray that it doesn't blow this wind out, that the wind doesn't blow out my flame. And I mean, I really don't know if today we're going to get a result that we want. I find that some days it works well, some days you get this weird pressure thing going that just makes it impossible to light a fire. Well, you could get it started, but to keep it going, it's more wasting your energy than you get out of it, that it's not really worth your time. You'll warm up just collecting firewood. Another trick you can always do is lock your lighter down. You can put tape on the thing and just leave it in there as a fire starter, but that's a one-time go. You get your fire once from the lighter, and then it's done. So I try and get it started just by doing this principle. As you can see, it's starting to go. It's wanting to sort of light. Need to get more items on here that'll burn, but you don't want to smother it out either. So it's sort of a delicate art. Trying to get fire started here, but I think we're getting it. You can always use a blowtorch if you got one, but I mean, it's about what you got on you and how you utilize it. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna have much luck with this. I'm already smothering out. It's just such a pain in the butt sometimes. But anyway, it's just so wet. And it's starting to rain again. If you have a candle on you, it's a really good thing to take with you when you go hiking. You'll get results out of a fire much better. I don't think I have enough fuel here, for one thing. I mean, sometimes it just is what it is. Today it just isn't. I'm going to try and get some scrapings here. This technique is called a feathered stick. Feathering the stick, you can use these chippings if they're dry. They're a tad bit damp, so everything's just saturated with water. But there might be some pitch in this that'll keep it going to some degree. I'll lift this up, drop those in there. But I think this is a shot deal. We're gonna have to try something else, because I just can't find a dry location to get my materials at the moment, which is a real pain in the fucking ass. Fuck it. So a trick I learned is to save energy, no point wasting it. And sometimes getting a fire started just is not the way. I tried. I mean, if I had better preparedness and was in a better area, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. I could get one going, but it's been raining 5 weeks solid here. I mean, it's bullshit. So getting a fire is just dumb. It was wasting my time. But I'll show you one little trick to get fuel and warm up your body, and that is food. So we take this old rotten log here. This just happens to be older. Split her open. What we're looking in here for is grubs. As you can see, I saw some termites crawling around in another piece of log. But what we have here is one grub. These guys apparently are very tasty. I've never actually eaten one, but if I was desperate, I would. Hold on. There you go. There's our loaded in protein. Sort of like an alien-looking bug with great big pinchers. Me personally, I don't like the idea of eating the head there, so I'd pull the head off and then eat the rest of the bug. That's sort of how I deal with termites and stuff. This here, I think, is a termite larva. It could be some other kind of beetle. But we just basically go digging around through the rotten stumps, and you'll find a lot of grubs in there. Look, I just cut one up. There's another one of them big worm things. So, there were termites in here as well. I'll see if I can get one out of here. There's another big worm. So there's one. Put him there. We'll put him there. We'll put... See what else we got in here. Oh, there's a spider. We don't want him. That's a spider right there. Put him off to the side. So... Ooh, there's another one. That's a lot of protein right there. And here's a termite. There, I just killed him. And I think we're somewhat picked clean here. Oh, there's another one. And you'll often find logs shredded up like this out in the wilderness. Quite often that's raccoon or bear. They've been doing the exact same thing. Looking for the smorgasbord. Right there. There you go. We got 4 of these larvae, and there's a termite right there. I just broke his neck so he doesn't run away, and you can eat him. So that right there is quite a bit of protein. I would have had one more if I didn't decombobulate that one. Sort of just cut him right in half and smeared him with all the wood. In a dire scenario, sure, you could probably eat that too, but I mean, I'm not that desperate. I'm just in my backyard here. But I'm just showing, like, so I failed at lighting a fire today, even though you got the principles of it. Those principles will not fail you if you're thinking about that ahead of time and you prepare for it. But today it did. I would have taken lighter fluid or something if I knew I was going to be out here. But, however, you can always get food. There is... I mean, in my opinion, there's never a food crisis. There's always going to be enough bugs to feed the world. It's just for some reason, culturally, we are turned away from it when it's something we used to do without thinking as a primal. And there's nothing wrong with eating them. You'll probably get more protein out of this than you would out of steak, especially all that GMO crap that you get nowadays has no nutrients. But these little guys are going to make you by far a lot healthier than eating some of the food you get at the grocery store. But I'm not trying to push bugs on everyone. I'm just saying that it's always an option. And these guys are all edible right here. None of these things right here will kill you. So there you go. That right there would be enough fuel for me to hike out for sure. I mean, it's not going to fill my gut up, but it's going to give me energy. So I'm going to let these guys go. I'm sure they'll survive. Well, the termite won't. I sort of enabled him. If it makes you feel better, I will eat the termite. But I'll just put them back in there, those grubs. I don't feel like eating them. But just to prove to you guys, for those of you who are squeamish about eating bugs, now is the time to turn away. Because I am about to eat this little termite. So what I did was I just pulled off its head because I don't like eating the heads of bugs. It's just gross. Same goes for ants. All ants you can eat. You can even cook them over a fire. They'll taste more like crab that way. But right there is a little termite. Tastes just like chicken. Anyways, yeah, sorry I failed on the fire, but at least there's always food around. So there you go. So we're on our way back now, and just want to go over the basics to hypothermia, sort of the stages, so you know that if you've got it or not. Number one stage is uncontrolled shivering. all it takes to get hypothermia is that your body temperature drops by 1 degree. That's all it is. And then you get the stages of hypothermia moving in. The first stage is uncontrolled shivering. If you're shivering periodically and then you stop, and then you shiver again and then you stop, that's not uncontrollable shivering. Uncontrolled shivering is when you're shivering and there is no pause. It's just constant shivering. That's the very first stage of hypothermia. With these stages, you can have blue lips and goosebumps and other things like that. Then you move into the second stage of hypothermia, which is you're basically weak. You're feeling tired, you're feeling unenergetic. You might be feeling a little warmer at this stage, not as cold. So you're thinking you're more comfortable. Sorry, I just found this barrel out here in the woods. Probably from the old loggers running their chainsaws. Chevron. Anyways, so the second stage of hypothermia is that where you're now, your limbs are going numb and you're basically beyond the shivering factor and you're even colder. Then the third stage gets quite dangerous because this is a period where you actually feel warmer and you might start removing clothing, but you're not warmer. You're basically your nerves are starting to die off, so they're not recepting as well. And that's where you end up with all sorts of things sometimes you can hallucinate, you'll be delirious, just different things like that. You might think your friends are calling out to you when there's nothing, just that kind of stuff. And that's probably the most lethal stage of hypothermia. So once you get to the uncontrolled shivering, you want to think about getting your fire started if you can do that, or at least going out and getting the fire going. Once you get up and moving, you're more likely to warm up. Just that on its own will make you feel better than just sitting, finding a little pit to sit in. If you're sitting in a pit, that's where the cold air is anyway. So you want to think about that kind of stuff. But anyways, so that's just hypothermia. So you want to avoid that at all costs. So that's when you really want to think about getting that fire started. If you've fallen overboard and you end up getting up on the beach and you're wet and cold, that's the time to get the fire going, basically right away. So anyways, we're just basically headed home. I'm actually quite surprised I couldn't get that fire started. I didn't have enough material. That was part of the problem. Everything is just so wet that even finding the dry material goes to show you that, you can go out with some preparedness and it still makes it's really hard. It's not as easy. So what I suggest to everybody is not to wait till you're in that scenario to light a fire. Keep that as a common practice. Whenever you get the chance, light a fire. Do it in your fireplace or little fire in the backyard type thing. What I did there, you don't want a fire any wider than this. I'll quickly show you my principle of fire setting up. My rule is, if you're setting up a fire, especially a survival fire, put your hands out like this. You don't want your ring any bigger than that. We're not building bonfires or what they call a white man fire. This isn't a signal fire even. And even with a fire that big, it's good enough for signaling. You throw a bunch of wet moss on that, you get smoke going. That's a signal fire. No reason you need to build a fire bigger than this. The reason I say no bigger than this is controllable. If it starts to get out of control, you grab your dirt and you can sweep it over. That's the reason. The other reason is you can get up close to them. You get up close, you huddle over the fire, you get warm. Have a big massive fire, it's so hot you can't even get up to it. And you get sort of this hot front when you get up to it, but this side's cold. And with a fire you can get right up onto, you get that, it feels a lot warmer. You can cook off them a lot easier, you can get right up to them, that's the point. And the other factor about it is, this is a containable fire. You have a fire this big, you can fuel it. Have a big bonfire, you're going to be constantly grabbing trees, cutting trees down pretty much to keep it fed. And with this method, you can just basically have a big pile of wood that's ready to go, and that's that. It's not this constant chasing just to keep it burning. So that's why my rule is your emergency fire should be no bigger than this, and that's why you practice at home. You should have try a few methods, try all different ones, wet your wood down, try lighting it then, and practice, because if you do not keep this tuned, you're going to forget. I'm going to be honest with you, my little scenario over there, it's been a full year since I've lit a fire, and I'm a little rusty again. Yeah, it is technique, it's not something that anyone can do. I'll tell you, the average city person can't light a fire to save their life, and that's the truth. So, just trying to show you techniques that are going to help you out. I mean, I still fail to light my fire even today, and it's not even raining, let alone. Well, it has been raining, but I mean, try doing it when it's actually raining. It's going to be even harder. So, there you go.